welcome to Desert Wanderers, produced by Salt and Light Radio. If you're new here, we bridge the gap between you and the person in the pew next to you. I will be interviewing priests, religious, and laity in our local Boise diocese, asking questions that'll help you navigate your vocation and help build community wherever you are with whatever resources you may have. Let's build the city of God together. Welcome, Terri. Welcome, Evelyn. I'm so excited to have you guys on today. And Evelyn, I am so glad you're back. You have been, I get a lot of people that talk to me like personally. I mean, not necessarily on the channel, but like personally will come up and be like, I listened to that Waldorf episode, and it's probably also because of the stage of life I am. I have a lot of friends with little kids, but they're like, that was the best episode. It changed how we interacted with our 2-year-old, like very good stuff. So we're excited to have you back on today.
Thank you.
But today we are talking about something a little different than Waldorf. We are talking about the Secular Franciscan Order. So I'm very excited to talk to you about this. Let me do this first. I'm going to talk to each of you a little bit about how you came to be a secular Franciscan. But as Evelyn showed me early on in our email correspondence, you guys are not called the lay Franciscans.
No.
So if you could do me a favor, could you outline a little bit about the Franciscan order and then how the secular Franciscans compare to regular Franciscans? And then
We are regular Franciscans.
Oh, see, I don't even know.
No other. Yeah.
Can I take this one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start there, but then
right,
why
Our own personal, it's a regular. It is a regular vocation story, you know, because it is a vocation. So, all right. So Saint Francis actually started 3 orders. He started 3. Okay. So the men, which are basically the OFMs, Order of Friar Minors, they have their own distinct charism. Then when Clair decided to leave her family and established a community of women, that became the second order, which again, they have a distinct charism. And then the people of the community said, we want to join too. So he created a third order. So the first, the second, and the third. So we are an order in the church. We're not a community group. We're not, you don't just quit. You don't just join. We're not like a parish group. Okay. Anybody can, people who want to become a Franciscan not only have to be a good, upstanding Catholic within good position, you know, married in the church, all that kind of stuff. But it's open to diocesan priests and diocesan clergy. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So how does that differ from, because I think they would still call themselves like a third order Dominican, but they call themselves lay Dominicans. Is that just a word choice, or is there something fundamentally different about Franciscans?
It's more about the Carmelites are pretty interesting because when Francis was one of the beginning of the mendicant orders, prior to Francis, all religious order was location-based, the monasteries, all right? But he did not want to live. That's not how God was calling him. And so he was out and about and supported himself by begging and by preaching and things like that. When the Carmelites were, from what I understand, that I've been told, because I'm not one, when they were forced to leave the Holy Land and come over to Europe, they had to decide, are you going to be a mendicant or are you going to be a monastic? And they decided to be a mendicant, meaning they support themselves and not be site-based. So where I don't know if they were founded, you know, who the founder was of their lay part, okay, but for us, it has always been an order in the church. So like our whole structure, our headquarters is in Rome, and Terri as our minister is in canon law is equal to a pastor of a parish. So very different than just a lay order. And sometimes people use the word lay meaning not priests, but within our order, priests are welcome. And what you need to understand is how is the priesthood organized? Because there are religious orders, and then there are diocesans. So the religious orders always take at least the 3 vows, poverty, chastity, and obedience. The diocesans don't. They only take They only take an order. They only take vows of obedience and celibacy. That's all. They don't take a vow of poverty. So they can become affiliated with another order. Then with Vatican II, the orders were all allowed to have what they call an affiliate. So you can be, so in Portland, I was hanging out with all the Maryknoll. And the Maryknoll, we're not priests or whatever, but they have you're an affiliate to their order, meaning you're a group of people who volunteer to come together with like mind to support the activity of the religious. Okay? We as an order have our own affiliate because we are an order. It's not just our stage in life. So we are an order of the church and have an affiliate program. We have a youth program, so it's quite different. So some people will use lay or some people use third order. We just got used to using the proper name, which in English is the Secular Order of St. Francis,
So the first order then would be like
OFMs,
which are more monastic, meaning like
no. Franciscans are not monastic, so we're not monks. We're not tied to a location.
Let me rephrase that then. So your first order would be men who take a vow of chastity, poverty, and obedience with the Franciscan rule of life. Right?
With their rule. Francis wrote a rule for the first order.
Yeah.
Okay. Clair wrote the rule for the second
order.
And then he laid out the broad strokes of the rule for the third order, which then was refined over the centuries. And so the first order, the Franciscan friars, they broke apart before he even died. And so there became the Franciscan OFMs like we normally see, but also the OFM conventuals because they wanted to be more site-based. And conventual comes from the word convent, and convent meant a place. And so they broke apart even before he died.
That makes sense, I think, because you could still serve. I'm just thinking from what the ideas may have been. Like you can serve a broader community and still have a central base to come back to all the time. But one of the things that I saw that I really enjoyed is there is a group of, I think, first and second order Franciscans that live communal lives. I don't know exactly where they're based, but they travel all over the world. They go out 2 by 2 and they travel all over the world. So you'll see social media posts and they're like, we hitchhiked from, and they actually hitchhike and they don't carry any food. They don't carry any money. They don't carry anything. And I think it's been a really interesting testament on, I think that for me personally, I found that really interesting because it really brings home the passage when Jesus talks about go out and for what is the way, I don't know the exact words, but like basically kick off your sandals to the people that don't welcome you and then bless the ones that do. Everyone's gonna be like, you butchered that, but that's okay. But so here we are.
The second order though is monastic. So the Poor Clairs there's a convent in Spokane. All right, and for many, decades, they would never leave their building. I remember visiting them in college, and you had to go in the little screen slid, just like in the movies. All right, but so the second order are Poor Clairs. Their charism is poverty. There is poverty. The first order, and again, the most common that you see are being the order of friar minors, the OFMs, the conventuals, ones are more convent or home, have a place based, and then couple centuries later, broke off another group which we call the Capuchins. So the Franciscan Capuchins.
Isn't that isn't the Capuchin?
No, it's the hood. All of the hoods are a different length, and that's how you can tell you're a conventual, you're an OFM, and you're a Capuchin is by the hood design. It's just so interesting. But the Francis did not want to be tied down to anything. He wanted to live the gospel. In fact, when he balked when the Pope said you need to submit a rule, he goes, I got the gospel. Why do I need a rule? And the Pope said, no, and sent him back. And the Franciscans were actually the very last order of the church to be canonically recognized. And then with the Fourth Lateran Council, they closed. And so that's why it's the Society of Jesus, the congregation of this or that. But the order, so the Franciscans were the last one that just made it under the gate to be able to do that. So it's and there's more Franciscan organizations, or I should say religious communities, than anything. I mean, way more than Dominican breakoffs or everything, or Augustinian breakoffs. And that's the fourth organization of the First Order. Are also, it's confusing because they're called TOR, or Third Order Regular, and we are Third Order Secular. So that's Steubenville University, Franciscan University at Steubenville. They are a TOR, Third Order Regular, because when you had the monastic Second Order, you had the OFMs, the OFM Capuchins, the OFM Conventuals out and about. Over time, there was a group of men who wanted to come together and be a religious order like the other guys, but not them. And so they were granted then to be a Third Order Regular. Regular meaning poverty, chastity, and obedience. We're Third Order Secular. So we don't take vows, we make a profession. Okay. And so it gets real twisted and complicated because you have to understand the word lay compared to religious compared to secular.
That's what I was going to say. It gets kind of confusing.
Because secular in society, you say secular is bad. No. You know, all of our priests in the diocese, not all of them, but many of our priests are diocesan priests, so they're secular priests. They don't have that vow of poverty. They don't have a community. They live by themselves. And if they want community, they can join the Third Order Franciscans. They can join the secular order, and they totally be part of a community. All right, and then the religious orders are all those who are vowed to a religious order, and so therefore you have secular and religious in that way, and then you end up with lay. So lay can be no clerics ever. But we're not lay because we have deacons and we have priests who are members of the order.
Right.
And so here in Boise, we have 2 deacons, one already professed and one in formation. Wow. And it just is another way of building community. So it gets a lot. And so if you ever see like the Franciscan sisters out and about, they're also considered in the church, they're lay people. They're not clerics. So there's only cleric and lay, that's it. And so they're also lay people. And so the sisters then, St. Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, Franciscan Sisters of Philadelphia, Franciscan Sisters of the Boise, somewhere in Iowa, okay? And so those are religious orders that take the 3 vows, okay? But they're Third Order, but not secular, because they're vowed. But they're not Second Order, because Second Order are poor Clairs. They're the monastic.
That's very interesting.
It takes a roadmap.
Maybe what I'll do is I'm sure we can find one online. Maybe I'll just set it up so that we can track it down.
Well, I have a wonderful graphic. If I thought about it, that's just on my wall at home that shows exactly the trees of how it is. And I can take a photo for you if you want.
And we'll insert it.
Yeah. Because it's really, really helpful to be able to go down and go through and see where they all came. But the biggest absolute bottom line is we're the gospel. Yeah. Gospel to life, life to gospel. That's always it. And that's why Francis balked at wanting to have a rule. But he honored the Pope, and he did so. So he's a rule.
All right. With that being said, Terri, let's go to you now. I want to ask you, how did you find the Franciscan Order? What was your kind of vocation story to get to this point?
I don't remember how I found out about, and there's a lot of people that will say that. I happened to be living in northeast Montana, and there were a lot of Benedictines there. And they thought I should just join them. And for some reason, I said, no, I want to be Franciscan. So I found a Franciscan group in Montana, a fraternity. They weren't a fraternity then. And so that's where I came to be the Franciscan. I professed in the year 2000. So this is my Jubilee year.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
5 years.
Yeah, God bless.
Fun. Yeah. So then I wandered around in Montana, got to a fraternity, got professed, and then we moved here to Idaho to be with my kids. And then I found out they were trying to reactivate a fraternity that had been here probably since the 50s. Actually, they were canonically recognized in 1958. I found the original document. And then, like all times, things, that people got elderly and things changed, and there wasn't enough people you need to have at least 5 people in a fraternity to hold the offices and things. And so I don't know what the term is, deactivated, I guess. And so this group started out in 2011 to try and form a re-emerging fraternity. And there was only 2 of us who were actually professed. So we did the formation with them and got 5 people professed. And now we're in, I have 14 professed. I think that's 11, 14. And then we have 4 candidates and 1 inquirer. So we're growing. But just we were canonically recognized in 2020. And at the time, we had 5 professed.
Right, reactivated. Right.
So we're reactivated. So then, and since then, we've had people transfer in, and things have just blossomed, and now we have people. So we're going to have another election probably in the spring, and so now we can have choices.
Wait, so what does that mean, election? Like, is this like for positions?
So as an order, every order has to have a minister, has to have a formation director. All right. We have also a treasurer. We have different positions that work always in servant leadership that support the community. So when Terri was elected minister, it was like rearranging the chairs. They had 5 people and they just took different jobs.
Is that the same? Is that the same thing for all orders? Then is that what you just said?
Yeah, I mean, as an order in the church, right? Sure, there'll be We have a friar assigned to our region to help all of our region is all of the Northwest, and so he was assigned by his minister to that job. And so secular Franciscans only exist in a fraternity. Our charism is fraternity. You can't be a secular Franciscan alone. That's not who we are. We're all about joy and fraternity. So we hold positions.
I think that's my question, though, is I was thinking of the brothers at Verbum Spei, actually.
So they're a monastic order, not mendicant. And so some orders are only recognized in their own diocese. They have to be. So there's 2 sisters that had moved here from Arkansas or whatever, and the bishop wouldn't recognize them. Right. So they're still in their habit and all that stuff, but they're not recognized. So instead, they're women walking around and wearing funny clothes. All right, and they can do all they want, but they're not recognized by the bishop.
So do you guys have to be recognized?
We're fully chartered by the we have to, which he did, which happened in the late 50s.
Oh, I see.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
we have to be right.
So the bishop doesn't have anything to say about what we do, but he knows that we're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that you're serving, right?
Right.
Yeah, right.
Same as like if the Jesuits wanted to come and take over a mission or do a special project, they would have to come and negotiate with the bishop. The bishop is in charge of the whole diocese, of everything. Bishop word is law. And so we could never have been originally canonically created without the bishop's support.
Gotcha.
Back in the 50s.
Okay. So I'm gonna put a pin in that for a second because I want to come back to that, but I don't want your story to get lost. How did you first hear of the Franciscans, and when did you decide? And this is kind of the meat. I want to stay here for a second because if someone is listening and they're thinking, oh, that sounds interesting. I want them to see if they can kind of compare how they may eventually come to the Franciscans. So go ahead and stick on how.
My story.
Yeah, your story and how you were called to the Franciscans and how you ended up here in Boise.
So I've been a Franciscan. It's almost, I would think of it as like the lens that you see the world and just how it is. And so when I was a little kid, I went to St. Francis of Assisi grade school, made a big, huge impact. My mother's name is Francis. My father's name is Francis. My brother's middle names are all Francis. Okay. It was there. And when I had to leave St. Francis in third grade, it was just like I wanted to learn everything I could about St. Francis from that young age, all the time. So when I was in high school, I was able to find out about the Secular Franciscans. And back then we were still called the Third Order because I was a youngin'. And I remember I went to high school in Portland, and I spent a year out of school before going off to Gonzaga for college. And so I remember finding them, and they're way over in Tigard, Oregon, and it took like 2 long bus trips. And then I would go all the time over, and I'd go through formation, and I did 2 years of formation then right out of high school. When I got to Spokane, I found the Franciscans again at the St. Francis Parish, of course, and finished up my formation. It's a 3-year process. And then I professed in April of 1978. So that was a big, big difference because in June of 1978, our rule changed dramatically. So when I professed, we were still doing every night. You said a series of 12 Our Fathers. You wore a cord underneath your clothing. Okay, it was very, very different than when our rule changed in 1978. It brought us back to much more in line with the gospel and what Francis had done. And now instead of a cord, we all have our towels on because our towels, we wear it all the time. Our towel is our sign of profession.
That is so interesting because I have seen that. You call it a tau?
T-A-U. It's a Greek letter. And that's how Francis would sign his name whenever he would write. He would do it with a tau.
I always thought it was some kind of cross. So I always thought it because I think there is one cross depiction of Christ where it doesn't have a back on the head. It's just like a T.
Oh, yeah. Oh, lots. There's lots. You should see some really good tattoos, too.
Yeah.
That was my thought. I wanted to get a tattoo so I could change and wear a necklace someday.
But what I'm saying is I've seen that.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
I did not know
it's a tau.
Was,
okay. And that's why a lot of times
specifically Franciscan.
Yeah, that's how he signed his name. And so that was, I remember one time going to the movies and they said, "Oh, is your name, is that Thor's hammer?" It's like, no. Or the grocery store.
Kind of like.
The grocery store, your name must be Teresa. No, I'm a Franciscan. Have you heard of St. Francis? And so whether the tau, we wear the tau all the time. It could be earrings. It could be a tattoo. I've seen tattoos. It could be, but this is our habit as an order.
I'm so bad with jewelry. I would probably have to. I don't have any tattoos, but if I became a Franciscan, I would probably have to have a tattoo.
Easiest way.
I would forget to put on my jewelry.
You just don't take it off.
Yeah.
You go through the shower, the swimming pool. You just don't take it off. I go through at least probably one a year because I wear them off. Yeah. Just wear them out. And the wooden ones are a little hardier, but a little more odd at work. The wooden ones.
I'm so sorry.
But, okay. So then I fell in love with St. Francis all the time. And so when I was at Gonzaga getting a degree in religious studies, Catholicness, and professed then my sophomore year in college, and it always is. I graduate, I go back to Portland for graduate school, and I go and I seek out another fraternity because I always need a fraternity because that is, home. And then later on, many years ago, 10 years ago, I ended up going to Chicago for graduate school, and so I go visit. I need a fraternity, and I go visit several fraternities. Whereas in the West, there were few and far between. In Chicago, you have like 6 of them right there, and you just pick one. So our charism is very much fraternity. You can't do it alone.
So can you go, either one of you can answer this pretty easily, but what does it look like? What are the stages to profession? Because I think people on my channel are pretty familiar if they've listened to the podcast with the brothers that you have like the novitiate process and then you have 3 sets of vows, right? And you take one and you continue on and you continue on until you take your final vow. Once you take your final vow, then you are in for life, right? So what is the difference? Contrasting that to the Franciscans, what does that look like?
Take
Well,
that
we
one?
start out with inquiring, and then if you want to keep going, then you can go into inquiring and then candidacy. I think there
Well,
was another.
first of all, we meet, we gather. It's not a meeting. We gather. We
yes.
gather at least once a month. In other countries, they gather way more often, but in America, somehow we gather once a month.
I wonder if that has to do with how like far apart people live in the U.S. versus like cities in Europe are like a little closer.
Definitely
Right.
not walking distance.
Right.
And so they have to come and visit several times just to be a visitor. And then if they say, yeah, I really want to go through, then the formation director meets with them because we have to make sure they're canonically correct. Do they need an annulment? Do they need, have they gone to confession in the last whatever, things like that. They have to be right within the church. And so after those sort of testing the waters of who we are, then they move to the next stage of inquiry. And inquiry, I think, is about 6 months. And there's formal bookwork. They're together meeting with other people in the process, in formation.
So what does you said how many, you have to do different visits, and these are just to be considered a visitor, you have to do so many visits.
No,
Is that right?
At least 2 visits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone can come to a
Anybody.
gathering.
Mhm.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can come and go. Sometimes it takes people a little while to decide if they really want to pursue this. Or a lot of people think it's a prayer meeting or a Bible study, and then when we have to help them understand what they could be getting into if they want to go for it.
Okay.
Because it's lifelong.
Yeah.
There's no options.
So, and then let's go into, so once they're, what was the next stage? Sorry.
After
inquire. No,
inquiry?
wait. So inquiry is 6 months, and it's the same thing. Is there any kind of thing you take on at the inquiry stage?
When they finish that, they request to be admitted to the order.
Mhm.
The whole process is 3 years, and neither one of us do formation, so I didn't memorize it. I can give you a graphic later, and that will show you, right, yeah.
Well, I did formation.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
it
So
was
the candidacy, actually, I think you can start building on making sure that you're right with the church.
Yeah.
You don't
Has to be done before
if you have things that need to be fixed. Maybe need your marriage blessed or things like that. You have to get to that point. And so at candidacy, then you're considered part of the order, but you're not like a full-fledged
Right.
in the order, and that's an 18-month. That takes 18 months
Okay.
to go through that. And actually, it's like 2 years. But then they have if you go over a certain amount, I think it's like 4 years. Then you might have to start over again if you take so long,
Right.
too long to go. So and then after the 4 year, after the candidacy, then you profess.
Okay.
And then once you profess, then you're a Franciscan.
Okay.
The shortest is 3 years, the very shortest.
Okay.
And there's classes that you attend. There's retreats that you attend, that you participate in. We want to make sure it's real, that it's a real vocation and not just a place you want to hang out. Because if you move different communities, different stages of life, you're still a Franciscan and you still have expectations of living fully within the church, participating in the life of the gospel. And it's a lifelong profession. If you can't it's not like just stopping a group at church.
So what if someone is living in community and they have a group of Franciscans that they're a part of? They have this community, right? And then for some reason, their spouse, husband, wife, they get a job somewhere else and they have to move. And say it's more rural and there isn't a community there. What happens for that person?
We have not yet created any type of internet kind of a community because of so the human part is so important that we haven't. In fact, we got a call.
I hope it doesn't, though, because it's so important that it's the human part, right?
So our fraternity is one level, and then we have a region. We're called the Troubadours of Peace region, and so which is its own fraternity. And then you belong to the Fraternity of the United States, and then you belong to the Fraternity of the whole order. So every Franciscan belongs to actual 4 fraternities. And so we got a call at the region level, because right now I'm serving on the region executive council, from someone in northern Utah and wanted, where is the closest fraternity? And it was 2.5 hours away.
Would that mean that once a month they have to drive 2.5 hours?
Well, we have 2 that come every gathering from Twin, Jerome. They do. They come in. That's why we put our gatherings on Sunday, so they can come in. They do all of the formation class. We enjoy the gathering, and drive home. And sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 kids with them, because that's too important. They put it off from their younger years, and they said now is the time.
Yeah.
So it's hard because we're so rural, and like up in parts of Idaho, you'd be closer to Montana, but that's a different region, or Utah's a different region.
And they can't, can they
not
cross?
They can. It would just take some paperwork.
Oh, okay.
Just to try to do that. But we want community.
Right.
And it is really hard. I mean.
So then with like the local community, you said you had to have 5, right?
We have people for each office, basically what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so with that, so like if, say, in Pocatello, there were 5 Franciscans, could they start their own so that they don't have to travel if they didn't want to?
They would be assigned as a developing fraternity, and they would have a big brother, let's say, a sponsoring fraternity, who would then include them in everything as much as possible and get to know them. And then once they have met expectations to be able to be formed on their own, then there's a big celebration, just like we had here in Boise when St. John fraternity was reactivated, big party. So those can happen all the time. But we always need at least 5 because of the positions that are required and fraternity.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a fraternity north of Spokane in Little Deer Park, Washington. They're sponsoring a fraternity in Alaska. And so they've got gatherings that they figured all the Zoom stuff out. All right. But they have to send somebody up, at least once a year, because it's a human being relationship. And once they have enough professed members and they're solid, we don't want to just create you because you got the head count. It's got to be solid and very faith-based. Then they will be activated.
Wow.
So it's really interesting, because like when I was in Chicago, they had so many small ones, and I went to visit, and mine, where I was coming from, Portland area, was more, really active. And it turns out most of the ones in Chicago were very prayer oriented. And I did some history checking. I'm like, why do they just want to sit and pray the rosary all the time? Why aren't they worried about water issues or worried about this or that? And it turned out that Pope Leo XIII was a secular Franciscan. Yeah. All right. And so he rewrote the rule.
That's not Pope Leo XIV.
Correct.
Yes,
right. It's the first guy.
This is who he named himself after.
Yes. So when he rewrote the rule, he made it practically into a prayer solidarity group. And so you could join at 16. They had the youth part, and it was much more that feel of a parish prayer group. And so after Vatican II, they went back to sources and went back and said, no, thank you, Pope Leo, but we need to write the rule within the real charism that Francis had left us. And that was the June 1978 rule that put it much more active. You're in the world, you're expected. You don't come away just to pray. Your vocation is lived out in parish life, is lived out in the community. And Pope Leo there for, 75 years, we had a really different kind of rule. Yeah. And so even though we're proud of him for being a secular, he was a man who knew what his time needed.
Yeah.
And then with the Vatican II, the Holy Spirit has led us back to our roots.
Well, he's also the Pope that developed the St. Michael's prayer. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I think prayer was pretty solid.
Really strong.
Centered for him. Okay. So my question now then, Terri, would be, what does a day in a life of a Franciscan look like?
Well, I think I would say a Franciscan, if you were, and we should be able to pick them out, but I'm not sure. But you would live a simple life. You know, I don't think any of us are driving fancy cars or anything like that. We have simple homes. We are good listeners. We try to do whatever we can within the vicinity that we have control of. That's why I kind of think of that. My formation person always says, you don't have to go out and save the world. You just have to be and follow the gospel. That's what we do. So it would be, if there's a guy on the street with begging, and I just don't really care if he's going to take the money and go get cigarettes and beer. I give him a little bit of money because that's what Francis would have done, or anything that people would need, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's also very much ribbed in prayer, though, because we have choices on what the prayer expectations are. So prior to the 1978 rule, the seculars would go to Mass and they would do the 12 Our Fathers all the time. And now there's more people much more active in doing the Liturgy of the Hours, at least morning and evening prayer. And that's really an important part of grounding our day. But you can tell Franciscans a lot by their joy.
Exactly.
So
are there a lot of sanguines that are Franciscans?
Yeah, I mean, happy people. I want to tell you the story. I don't know if I did with the kids, but let me show you this. Pretend this was fake. Oh, it is. Okay, all right. When I was teaching RCIA years ago, I had a priest come in who had been a friar, and he was doing the talk for the RCIA class about vocations. And he took a fake potted plant on the table. He says, all right, so this is like religious orders. Here's this. Well, if you're a Benedictine, you're going to use this flower in liturgy. If you're a Carmelite, you're going to pray with this flower. If you are a Dominican, you're going to preach to that flower. If you're a Jesuit, you're going to educate that flower. And he went through all the different orders, and then he says, and if you're a Franciscan, you're going to play with it. Okay? So that is very much our charism, grounded in fraternity.
I love that.
Me too. It was very helpful
I think
for
that
RCI
beautiful
class. And it's what is it you're called to?
I think that's such a central point, because when you're talking about all of those different things, people are drawn to different ones. Like, being a Dominican and wanting to preach, or being
order.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or Carmelite, or, I thought this was really helpful. So right after our last interview aired, we had Father Tim on, or maybe it was right before. I can't remember which order was. But we actually sat and talked briefly, actually it was like most of the podcast, but we talked about how oftentimes people struggle with prayer because they're trying to fit in the box that they think is holy, instead of being in the box which is like what their soul is naturally inclined to pray like. Right. And so this was really important when we did talk slightly about what a Benedictine might be like, if you were inclined to the Benedictine way of prayer, what that might look like. Carmelite, Franciscan, all of the different orders. We kind of went through them briefly and said what that might look like. So, and I think that's really important, and I think it sets us free a little bit, because I don't know if anyone else went through this. I think so, because I've heard a couple of my friends also express this, where you're like, well, I need to dress a certain way, and I need to be meek and mild, and I need to be, I need to have this really rigorous prayer life, and I need to be praying the rosary every day, and that's what it looks like to be holy, when that's not necessarily what it looks like. I feel like that's almost like a lie. That's like, this is what you think it is. This is a box, Security. And it's not really. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So Francis, all Franciscans are very Marian. Okay, very Marian. Mary is so important to us within our spirituality. Okay, but for me as a young woman with a much older mom, was like, all right, no, you go get your husband coffee, and you do this, and you be quiet, and you be meek and mild. That to me, Mary was this wimp. Mary was not this person I had much of a relationship with. And Mary was always saying yes, yes, yes. When I learned about Clair, Clair is the great no. So when Clair wanted to leave her before the night she left her family. It was Palm Sunday, and the tradition at the church had been all the single women would go up to near the sanctuary, up to the bishop, and get a palm. And she wouldn't budge. She knew she was leaving that night. She knew it. She wouldn't go up and get the palm. So the bishop actually came and gave her the palm instead. Then she leaves in the middle of the night. All right, she goes to meet Francis. He shaves her head. There's no place to put her except a Benedictine, monastery. So off she goes. Her brother, her uncle, and her brother come to get her, and she says no. And she's hanging on, and they cannot make her let go. I mean, it's like a miracle. They can't. She said no, I will not. Okay, when she had her community. The Pope came to visit one time, and he's, this is Clair. This is an amazing woman. And so he is sitting down to meal and said, all right, Mother Clair, you pray. She's like, no, you're the Pope. You are going to do the prayer. When Francis dies, all right, so he has his order set up. Now, Francis was not too well educated, but Clair really was educated. So she dies 27 years later, so quite a big change, but she won't die until the Pope agrees to her rule. And the Pope's like, no, this is too harsh. This is too poverty. This is not good for women. No. And she hung on and hung on and hung on and hung on. And he finally gave in, and he signed her rule into being, and she died 2 days later.
Oh my goodness.
So within my spirituality then, it was finally, with great respect now, I have Mary side by side, the great yes with the great no. And it's like, all right, those women I can handle, but I want to be a pushover.
I love the story of St. Clair too, when I forget what exactly was happening, but basically their castle was being surrounded with people that were going to destroy
the Saracens.
Yeah, and so what does she do? All the sisters come to her as she's praying in front of the
monstrance.
Not the tabernacle. Well, I guess technically, but anyways, and she takes the monstrance, runs up to the top of the tower, and holds the Eucharist up above her head until every single one of them turns around. Like, that's such a crazy story.
Yeah.
I love that story.
She's a very, very strong woman.
Yeah.
And after her father died, her mother came, her sister came. They all became poor Clairs, or the poor ladies they were called.
Would you tell me, so you said that her rule was really intense. Could you just briefly touch on what some of the,
just
do you know
the poverty? No, there's monastic, and it's not much. I mean, there's they didn't have beds. They slept on the floor. I mean, no. I mean,
what about food and stuff?
I don't know. They were dependent.
They had to rely on the people in town to bring them food.
Wow.
That's the monastic way, because you're right there. In fact, one of her other great no's was Francis had said he would provide spiritual directors for her ladies, but then he went off, and they weren't being properly serviced, so she went on a hunger strike, and so he finally got back and said, "You said you're going to provide." And so he finally did. And it's like, she's got guts. I mean,
Girl,
but I know. But I'm not a monastic person in any way. And so Francis is my guy.
So tell me, okay, so let's talk about, we've kind of gone through how to profess. So what do you profess then? What are the things that you take on as a Franciscan? What do you promise?
Well, I promise... I don't know the exact words. I haven't looked
at
them for a while.
It's a profession rather than a promise. But it's not a promise. It's a profession.
Okay, well, so I'm not necessarily saying the profession, but what does do you have to pray a morning prayer in the morning? Do you have to do works of service? What does that, you said it talks about getting community, so... what does the community gatherings look like?
We have a rule.
So 5 different
There's 26 little paragraphs of the rule, and it includes all of those things. It will say your prayer life, how you live in community. Okay. Well, I think we've skipped a part about formation that's really important. It's 18 months of learning about all the aspects of Franciscan, and I always tell the candidates, when you get through with your formation, that doesn't mean that you're done. You're not done. You have a smattering of everything about Franciscans, and then you get into the real stuff. Once you've professed, and you keep coming back to the gatherings, and we always have ongoing formation. We read books, where we might be doing videos and different things to keep the Franciscan charism alive. And so that's the formation, is just to give you an idea of what Franciscans are all about. And from that, then you can make your decision about professing, and then you get into the real nitty gritty of the Franciscan charism.
Kind of live it out. And because we are a member of so many different fraternities at once, we can participate. Like, we have a justice circle that is at the region level. And that is Zoom based. And so we're too small here, but we can do a justice circle that is looking at different issues. And that's pretty darn cool. Or we've got another one coming up from the national fraternity about recognizing physical and mental disabilities as a justice issue. Okay, and so we have that ongoing formation. There's a summer institute at a Franciscan university in the Northeast every summer. There's lots of televised or Zoom presentations from other Franciscan communities. So our ongoing formation is critical to be able to maintain and understand our spirituality, because our spirituality is different.
Okay.
It's different.
We just keep growing. We just keep growing.
Always grow.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and let's just touch on the rule. I just moved it from 15. Yeah. But would you mind going through, how long is the rule? Would it take us a while to get through the whole thing?
If we read it aloud?
Could we,
probably.
Is there a brief? There's
the rule or there's no rule. It's
there's no in between.
For our meetings, for our gatherings, I've been doing a rule
of the month.
One rule or two every month.
How many rules are there?
26. There's 26 parts to our rule.
One rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. 26. Parts.
Yeah, 26 paragraphs.
Okay.
Yeah, and it covers all these things, all the meetings, the prayer, just how we live, how we interact with each other. There's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
In your best way possible, could we try to summarize that for someone?
I just did.
Right, yeah. I mean, just listen, the Secular Franciscan Order holds a special place in this family circle of Franciscans. It's an organic union of all Catholic fraternities scattered throughout the world and open to every group of the faithful. In these fraternities, the brothers and sisters, led by the Spirit, strive to perfect charity in their own secular state. By their profession, they pledge themselves to live the gospel in the manner of St. Francis by means of this rule approved by the Church. So we are always Christian. We are always Catholic. We always follow Jesus. We like the way Francis did it. Okay, so that's why, and so it outlines again ways of life, that what we're supposed to be, we should seek to encounter the living and active person of Christ in our brothers and sisters, in sacred scripture and in the church and liturgical activity. The faith of St. Francis, who often said, "I see nothing bodily of the Most High Son of God in this world except his most holy body and blood," should be the inspiration and pattern of our Eucharistic life. So we're very church-oriented, we're very Eucharist-oriented, we're very Marian. But it's always to go out. It's always to go out. So like I mentioned, number 15 was always mine. Let them individually and collectively be in the forefront of promoting justice by the testimony of their human lives and their courageous initiatives. Especially in the field of public life, they should make their definite choices in harmony with their faith. Okay, we are together or individually. That is just such an important part for who we are. It talks again about the prayer and how all of our life is. So
Well, could you touch on the prayer for a second? Do you think you could find it?
Let's see. We cultivate the Franciscan spirit of peace, fidelity, and respect for life. So we're very pro-life. All right. Striving. Let's see. Striving to make of it a sign of the world already renewed in Christ. By living the grace of matrimony, husbands and wives in particular should bear witness in the world of the love of Christ for his church. They should joyfully accompany their children on their human and spiritual journey by providing a simple and open Christian education and being attentive to the vocation of each child. So it gets some of these specifics, whether you're a parent or not a parent, all of these. And then it defines how we're supposed to live in fraternity. That our fraternity is our basic building block for that. On various levels, each fraternity is animated and guided by a council and a minister who are elected by the professed according to our Constitution. Their service, which lasts for a definite period, so no fiefdoms, is marked by a ready and willing spirit and is a duty of responsibility of each member of the fraternity. Within themselves, the fraternities are structured in different ways according to the norm of their constitutions. Because, again, we have a constitution that was written for United States seculars.
Okay.
And then we have the international
Do you have one
and
that's a more regional then, too?
Yeah, we have a regional guidelines.
We have guidelines. Yes, we do. We're in the middle of updating them. But it's just, it talks about everything, all of you. I remember one pastor came up to one of our Franciscans and said, well, what do you guys do? Well, he didn't understand we were an order in the church. Well, I have this job, but I'm also a lector, and I help with the, RCIA and this one or that. And he was thinking like we were a parish group, and you guys have, we work on this project, or we have pancake dinner, breakfast or whatever. It's like, no, we're an order in the church, and each of us individually or communally are called to serve.
So that's a good question, though. Are there any times that you guys work as a community for a local good? So what does that look like?
We love this organization here in the Boise area called NACOB, the Native American Community of Boise.
Native American Coalition of Boise.
I like community, but okay, coalition.
That's what it's called.
NACOB. And so we serve them. And so Terri is very connected to the Native community here. And so I think it's just the best time. We go their summer picnic, and we serve them the food. Oh, cool. They provide it, but we serve it.
Yeah, they have potlucks. So we do the picnic. And then at Thanksgiving time, they have a big gathering. They have about 200 natives come to the Thanksgiving dinner, and they farm out their turkeys and things. And so we go and we serve them.
They get to eat.
And then they call it the elders potluck when they have just the elderly people, and there's still, I don't know, about 100 people.
Yeah.
And it's what they were trying to do is that sometimes when they have a lot of kids and it gets noisy and crazy, they decided they wanted to have something kind of calming for the elderly people. So we go and we serve that, and sometimes kids come and serve. So it works fun. So that's what we do.
That's our favorite one. Yeah.
And then, okay, so could you go through what a community meeting would look like then each month?
Well, we have, we start out, our day is a long day because right now we have one person who's in inquiry. So our formation person spends an hour with them starting at noon. And then at 1:00, the candidates come. And our formation person spends an hour with them, and we can all go to that. And then our regular gathering starts at 2:00, and so and the inquirers and the candidates, anybody can come. We're very open, and we start with prayer, liturgy of the hours, one of the parts of the liturgy of the hours, and we have a ritual book that has our prayers in it from everything from our gathering beginning prayer to our ending prayer, the council prayers, someone coming into when we do the rites for the inquirers and the candidates, all of that, starting a new fraternity, it's everything in there. And so then we have kind of a business meeting. We have a secretary that takes the minutes, and we have a treasurer. We have the discussions about business and things, and then the formation person helps us pick out a book or something that we're going to use for ongoing formation, and then somebody will volunteer, or we make up a list of everybody takes a month, and then they lead the ongoing formation. Well, I guess the most important part is after we pray, then we eat.
That's a huge part of
It's
eating.
a huge part in there.
It's community.
It's the social part. So somebody's, we kind of plan ahead for the next several months, and people bring in our lunch because by that time we've especially the formation groups, they've been there for a while. So we have a lunch and we sit and visit about different things. And then as we go along, then after that we do the ongoing formation. As we go along, we do wind up getting into some really good conversations. It's interesting sometimes. I just never know for sure. I'm supposed to be leading it, but it takes on a life of its own.
Holy Spirit's always there. Holy Spirit's always there. We always have an empty chair ready for anybody as a guest, or the Holy Spirit always have a chair ready for somebody. And we don't all agree. I mean, believe me, our politics are not the same. We're not
Yeah,
at all. It's huge difference.
That's what I find incredibly interesting. Is there was a time when I thought, oh my, this could turn into something quite interesting. Yeah. But everybody is very respectful. We know, we're starting to get to know who's more liberal, who's more conservative, but we really respect each other.
But everybody is Catholic. So if you say
Catholic.
liberal or conservative, that's almost too big of a broad brush. But we know,
and then
who
are you guys
supports...
talking about liberal and conservative in terms of politics, like governmental
Well,
politics?
it's
or
more...
are you talking about liberal conservative in the Catholic Church because there's more traditional and
that doesn't even come up. The church part doesn't even come up.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we're praying the Liturgy of the Hours, and we're very dedicated to the church.
I wanted to just confirm, because some people will say there's more like liberal or conservative, like Catholic, versus if you're thinking of the TLM versus other Orthodox variations versus then.
Well, you could leave out the conservative and liberal part, but we do have disagreements about things that we talk out.
I think that would have to come up, because if you're talking about prioritizing what people you would like to serve, they're going to have different ideas of what. Or maybe have different ideas of what justice is, or
like I am a staunch opponent of the death penalty, but not all of the fraternity is.
Right.
And I'm just like jaw dropped, like, how could you not? And they could show me where they got to that decision, and it's like we're a family. It's like Thanksgiving. Not everybody has to get along at Thanksgiving, but you're all going to show up.
Yeah.
And so we are a fraternity. Yes. That's what we do. We get together, and one of them is sick, we're going to be right there. It's either, even when I was in Chicago for grad school, I got cards, from my old fraternity. Because I wasn't there.
Maybe that's something that we're missing in our current society. I think, especially when it comes to politics, it gets really heated really fast. And it even sounds like to the point where people are like, oh, I'm just not even going to talk to you about that because because it's too much like friction. But in this idea of community and this idea of this like fraternity and having those issues, you're still having the big conversations of like, who are we supposed to serve? Where is Jesus calling us to? Who are we supposed to minister to? And you might disagree, but the thing is it's a disagreement with the idea that the central part of the community is still Jesus, and that you have this thing of like, yeah, sure, we can disagree, but we're still going to love each other, and we're still going to have this central thing that pulls us together, which I think, again, is something that is sad, because I don't necessarily see that in our society at large anymore.
Right.
And I don't know, and I'm just speculating here, but maybe it's because family units are starting to fail. You know, we're seeing less and less family units that are cohesive. And I think that if you can't even see that your family's together, then how can you think of a nation that's together? You know, those kinds of things.
Comes down to identity.
Yeah, exactly.
And our identity as a Franciscan outweighs our identity as a voter.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is so important. And our absolute love of the Eucharist, it just binds us together, that we can disagree. I mean, we can still be shocked that somebody disagrees from us, but they're still family. They're still ours. Right. And that is such a critical point.
And there's still love. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I think our group has become very cohesive. And we all know where people are coming from for the most part, but we're just, and we laugh a lot. We laugh a lot, which I think is very, very important for a group, is to be able to laugh a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Do you guys have a pretty big age range of people, or are they all similar? Are they all basically similar in like life experience? Like, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, do you have younger families, older single? Like, what does the demographic of the Franciscans here in Boise look like?
Pretty middle to older.
Okay.
Yeah.
So well, because they never stop being, we've got a member in memory care that we still write to all the time. All right. I don't know how old Anne is, but she's probably older than us. Okay. And then we've got, the couple, I guess they're more middle than young, who with 7 kids, and they drive in from Twin every gathering.
And bring kids sometimes.
Yeah.
And animals.
Right, yeah, true, right.
Well,
so,
St. Francis.
I know.
To the animals. So.
The hardest part I have found in all of my many years as a Franciscan, is that we're expecting a point of sharing your life, and it's really hard when you're busy with little kids. And so even the couple, they're both physicians who drive up from the Twin area, had started years ago, but they had to wait till the youngest one was a teenager. And so then they came back. Their heart was always Franciscan, but to participate in the order, they had to find the right season of life.
So that's a good question, though. Like, I guess I have, is, do you think that it is, because say like for me, if I was feeling called to the Franciscans, I have a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-month-old, right? What are the asks that I'm being able, like, that I'm having to accept, I guess, weekly? Right, yeah. So to know, like, is this a big enough thing that I need to push it off for a while, or is this something that I can accept now and start doing? Like, what are those kinds of...
I think it's mostly... the once a month gathering, for sure. And we have, because we're more of a rural area, put formation and the gathering at the same time, back to back. Other places don't. They'll have formation during the week or something like that. The biggest one is grounding your life in prayer. That is just really, really important. And sometimes you're just exhausted.
I'm gonna push you there. What does grounding yourself in prayer mean? What does that look like?
All right. So it can look like you're up half an hour early before everybody, and you've got some time to talk with the Lord. It could be that you're dragging them all to morning mass once a week or twice a week or whatever you can do. It could be that if you're got the kids at the sitter and you're driving to work, you're knocking out a rosary. I mean, all sorts of different kinds of things, but it has to be first grounded in Jesus before you can say, I like Francis's way, kind of a thing, okay? And then the gathering, you're looking at roughly a single gathering about 3 hours once a month, and then our service projects with NACOB, our special celebration we just finished with was the Transitist of St. Francis. So all Franciscans worldwide celebrate on the 3rd, which is before his feast day, which is his transition into heaven. And so it's a beautiful candlelight ceremony, a ritual, and we, so those things are very important to us. We expect you to read the book that we're working on so you can participate in the conversation. It's not a class, it's a conversation. Some fraternities get so big that when they have the discussion, or one of the members will present, let's say, a summary of a chapter, then you break into 2 or 3 smaller groups, so that faith sharing kinds of stuff. So it's it becomes that lens in how you see the world. And as you have that grounding in prayer regularly, it's like the lens just sort of, you don't even know you have glasses on. It's how you see the world. I remember my daughter when I was in Chicago, and she'd had a mental health issue and had to move to Chicago with me and live in the dorm, thank goodness. And so her first time coming from rural Central Oregon, town of 1,000 people, and she's meeting all these nuns and priests because I'm getting a degree in Catholic ministry, and she come up one day and says, "Mom, I can't believe how Franciscan I am." I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm just so used to it." I said, "It's a great world." And it becomes that lens of just how you see the world, how you see other people, how you see life. And so it's always life to gospel and gospel to life, always back and forth.
I just like this. I just like this story, and I think it's really impacted how I live my life, knowing what perfect joy is. And it starts out because a lot of people will go, how can God allow this to happen? That you always hear this. How can that happen? Well, Francis' idea was perfect joy. It's like God is always walking with us. All kinds of things can happen to us, but God is always with us. And so his way of explaining it to one of his followers, they said, well, explain perfect joy. And he says, okay. He says, I'm walking along and it's a snowy, cloudy, rainy night. It's miserable outside. I'm all wet. I have ice crystals on my beard, whatever he was saying. Anyway, so he knocks on the door of someone he actually knows, and he asks the person when they answer the door if he can have some food or some shelter. And they say no and slam the door in his face. And I think he even tried again, knocked on the door, and the person said no. And so Francis is so excited about this because now he knows that God is walking with him, and he doesn't feel bad about it. He knows that God's walking with him, and he can withstand whatever happens because we always have God with us.
Oh, that's so beautiful. There's so much times that we this is, what do they say? Gen Z is the generation of anxiety. And I think that the stories like that and that idea of this thing that there could be something as perfect joy that could help so many people having that idea. And that's actually, it's so, I never heard that story of St. Francis, but I think in my deepest times of despair that I've ever had, I've always thought about Christ on the cross, thinking, okay, I'm suffering and I feel the agony in the garden, or I'm suffering and I feel the agony on the cross. Yeah. And that's how I feel right now. But I know that you've been there first. And I can be with you and you can be with me in that.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. His perfect joy. He's the first stigmata.
Yes.
St. Francis, perfect joy.
I learned that
pain.
I learned that on my calendar. Yes. I have a calendar, and it's the month of St. Francis, and I learned that from my calendar. It's like last week.
He is the very first stigmata. In fact, of all the stigmatas approved, people who have had a stigmata approved by the church, only 2 men. All right, Francis and Padre Pio, and that's it. All the rest are women. There's many, many women, and to think about that. To be able to join in that struggle, that difficulty, and yet to still have that perfect joy. I mean, it's just so important. When we have our transitist, when we're celebrating his transition into heaven, he wanted to be laid naked on the ground so he could be again connected to the earth, and he was, and so. He's very much wanting that humility. One of the best things I really love is his saying what he told his brothers was, as he was dying, he says, I have done what was mine to do. Now you must do what is yours to do.
Oh.
And I just remember one time when I had a job and I was let go really unexpectedly, and I was very sad. And God just reminded me very gently to say, no, I've done what I was to do, and they need to do now what they need to do. And it's like, okay, all right. It's like, not so much shaking the dust off your feet because they're not listening to you, but of just having that, being able to see the joy of breaking the tie. It's all right. It's time to go. Time to move on.
And not only on that, but the idea of like, I'm calling you to something better. Like God saying, I think that's a real example of, I love this image of, right, there's this little girl and she's crying, and there's this image, right, this picture I saw, there's Jesus, and he has one hand behind his back and he's taking the little girl's teddy bear, and she is just sobbing and crying, and she's throwing this huge fit, and he's taking it from her, but behind his back he has like a puppy dog or something, like an actual animal, like puppy dog.
Yes.
And just like, just wait until I give you, like, just trade me, and I have something more for you. And I think that's another way of like looking at that, Very much. Because we know sometimes the gifts that God has given us, but we don't know what we've become content with.
Of all the things we're missing out on what could have been, or that God's ready. It's just so. Because St. Francis, sometimes people think of him only as the airy-fairy garden, the guy for the bird feeders. Yeah. And he's like, oh my gosh, no. Oh my gosh, no. I mean, that was cute. He was successful with the wolf of Gubbio, and once they realized the wolf was hungry, and he stopped eating, and attacking people because they started feeding him. And it's like, no, look at that. Communicate with them. The animals, remember, were never thrown out of Eden. Only the people were. Yeah. And so to have that communications with them and things. So it's, Francis is a whole lot more than a bird bath. Yeah. A lot more.
I've even seen pamphlets that said taking Francis out of the bird bath. Right. Because there's so much more to do. I found this I'm taking a course on Franciscan spirituality. Yeah. And I have this little quote here that I thought was kind of cute. Where this is the year of hope. Yes. Yes. So it says, without a hopeful perspective, people move to depression, anger, hopelessness, bitterness, and disbelief. We are aware of God's love. We may not always understand, but God doesn't demand logic of us, only faithfulness. Yeah. And I thought, it's true. God is not going to be logical.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is also,
we are not going to understand his logic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
True. Yes.
Yeah, like
I want my teddy bear back.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's also the 800th anniversary this year of the Canticle of the Creatures. Oh, wow. All right. So Francis, that poem is so important because first it was written actually in his, by him, but it was also one of only two poems in that era ever written in the vernacular. So it was in the low level of the Italian, or it wasn't quite Italian yet, but and so it's so important. So he added the very last verse at the end when to welcome Sister Death, and he wasn't afraid of death. He's welcome Sister Death. It's just so important. So last year was the 800th anniversary of the Stigmata, and this year is the 800th anniversary of the Canticle of the Creatures, and so we've been partying for a couple of years now. Yeah. I mean, it's really important for us to see that. Franciscan spirituality is very distinct, though, from Benedictine, Dominican, and all of those, all right? So the church, I think it was Leo, but the church decided to follow St. Thomas Aquinas' teaching that Jesus died for our sins, all right, and that he had to die. Franciscan spirituality says, would Jesus have come down if Adam and Eve hadn't sinned? And we always say, holy moly, yeah, he'd want to come and play with us. He would want to come and be with us, okay? The Thomistic is much more like Jesus came down because he needed to save us from our sins. And that gives us too much power over God to make him come down. And so one of the main scholars is Duns Scotus, the Scoterian. And the church made a distinct decision in the late 1800s to go with Thomas, the Thomistic stuff. And so if you look at all of our Christmas songs, are all about, coming down to die for our sins and this and that. And it's like, I'm just not a Thomistic. I'm a Scoterian. I am a Franciscan. And Franciscans look at, if Jesus was supposed to die, he could have died with Herod as a baby. He could have been pushed off the cliff when he's teaching in the synagogue. Why do you think he was supposed to die? Why? And so of course we honor the church's tradition, but we have our own branch of spirituality that says, I'm glad he died. I mean, I'm glad he was willing to do that and stuff, but it's like, but it wasn't an if-then kind of a situation.
Yes.
And so we have a distinct spirituality within that.
Yeah. Okay, so if someone is saying to themselves right now, wow, I'm just feeling like a little stirring in my heart, like what I've heard, I kind of resonate with, where do they contact you guys? Where do they get more information?
We haven't really come up with that. We're a little bit worried about giving out like a phone number. Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to get contact with someone at a parish? Like if they go to their local parish, and could they get contact?
Well, we can tell you when and where we gather. Okay. And so we always are gathering the third Sunday of the month at Holy Rose Church.
Our Lady of the Rosary. Sorry. Our Lady of the Rosary.
Our Lady of the Rosary are at 2:00.
Come to Our Lady of the Rosary, and that's in East Boise. It's kind of buried in a subdivision. It's beautiful. And so just come to Our Lady of the Rosary at 2:00 on the third Sunday of the month, and we'll be there.
Well, thank you, Terri, and thank you, Evelyn. I'm so thankful for you guys to come on to the show, and thank you for telling us all about the Franciscans.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Desert Wanderers. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe down below. We're produced by Salt and Light Radio, so you can find us on social platforms at Salt and Light Radio or Desert Wanderers Podcast. We produce episodes every week and we launch them for you on Wednesdays. So make sure to tune in for next week's episode, and we'll see you then.